Hey! Hey, you! Hey!
Oh, hey! How'd you get here?
I've been watching you for a while. Like, a real long while. And you haven't done anything for over 2 years. No videos, nothing.
Well, as you can see, I've been busy. Well, there goes all my work.
Great! Now you can get back to work making videos. Got any ideas in mind?
So, I've got to make a video, huh? Well, I have been meaning to give this a look-see.
Hold on there, bucko. You really think people are gonna be interested in that? They want video games.
Video games. Video games.
Not the right time.
Well then, what do you suggest?
Well, I was thinking of a game called
Paper Mario!
Pikmin 2. It is what the people have been asking for.
What? Who's been asking for that?
Plus, it is Pikmin 2's 15th anniversary.
Pikmin 2's 15th anniversary? Oh, right. I got rid of that calendar.
So, you'll do it? Not like I have much choice.
Well then. Shall we get started?
Pikmin 2, as you can tell, is the sequel to the first Pikmin. Released April 29th, 2004 in Japan, and August 30th of the same year in North America, Pikmin 2 was a great successor to the original, maintaining the spirit of the first whilst having much more content. 2 new Pikmin, 2 playable captains, and 2 two-player modes. Heck, this review is even 2 parts because it's too big. That's a lot of 2s. I remember that my brother told me they were making a sequel to the first game, and I could hardly contain myself. I don't remember much before the release, but I do remember a couple of promotional images from a magazine, such as some red Pikmin in a grate, as well as a picture of a dark area with Olimar, some Pikmin, and electricity. Around this time, I also learned that Paper Mario was getting a second game as well. Needless to say, 8-year-old me was excited. Come Christmas 2004, I received Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Pikmin 2, as well as the Pikmin 2 Nintendo Power Guide. I used to read this thing every day on the bus ride to school. And as you can tell, it shows. Going to say this now, this video will have spoilers for the second game and will be playing off my first review of Pikmin. Okay? Okay. So, the story picks up right where Pikmin left off, with Olimar returning to Hocotate after successfully repairing his ship after the events of the first game. As he lands, he's greeted by the Hocotate Fright president and a new employee, Louie. The president immediately tells Olimar that the company is going under from an enormous debt due to a shipment of golden Pikmin carrots being stolen on Louie's first delivery. In order to pay off the debt, the president sells off the company assets, with, unfortunately, the SS Dolphin being the only asset available. All that work to repair your ship in the first game. Gone. However, the SS Dolphin doesn't come nearly close to paying off the debt, and with no other means to repay it, the president announces Hocotate Fright's closing. Out of shock, Olimar drops a souvenir he brought back, which the company's ship appraises to be worth 100 Pokos, knocking the total debt down to an even 10,000 Pokos. Upon hearing that there is even more treasure, the president immediately sends Olimar and Louie back to where Olimar crashed. Not even getting to see his family again, Olimar is back on another adventure. Upon entering the planet's atmosphere, the Hocotate ship strikes a few tree branches, and Louie gets knocked out of the cockpit, falling to Earth. Olimar narrowly avoids a complete crash landing and is immediately greeted by some red Pikmin. Louie, on the other hand, is separated from Olimar and starts to make his way back. On the way, he encounters the Red Onion and discovers the red Pikmin himself, much to his surprise. Olimar and Louie, working together with the Pikmin, manage to reunite and salvage a treasure found near Louie's crash site. After this first day, the two continue to collect all sorts of treasures, discover the yellow and blue Pikmin, as well as the new purple and white Pikmin, and repay the debt. Having repaid the debt, Olimar and Louie triumphantly return to Hocotate. Except for one small problem. The president, learning that there is still more treasure on the planet, and that Louis was left behind, gets off his butt to return to the planet with Olimar. The two return to the planet, collect the rest of the treasure, and rescue Louis by battling the colossal Titan Dweevil. Now having secured everything they could, Olimar, the president, and Louis blast off one last time, to the Pikmin giving a colorful farewell, and at long last, they head home to Hocotate. The conflict, much like the first, is a simple and easy to understand premise. Collect the treasures to repay the debt and
Save the company!
and then after, go and
Save the Louis!
Taking from the first game, let's look at what's changed and what has been added since then. First, the Pikmin. We get two new additions to the Pikmin Encyclopedia, Purple Pikmin and White Pikmin. Purple Pikmin are, well, purple, and are very hefty looking, with 6 hairs poking out of their head. The Purple Pikmin have a very unique ability, having the strength and weight of 10 Pikmin by itself. Because of their increased bulk, they walk at a slower pace compared to the other Pikmin, and have a resistance to being blown away by puffy blowhogs. They also have an attack strength 2 times that of a normal Pikmin, as well as a stun ability on enemies. When throwing Purple Pikmin, they land with a resounding thud, and if they land on enemies, they have a chance to temporarily stun the enemy. On top of this, Purple Pikmin also have a homing ability, in which they will home in on an enemy after being thrown. This makes Purple Pikmin valuable, if not somewhat overpowered fighters during battle. On the other side of the same coin, we have the White Pikmin. White Pikmin are small, skinny, white creatures with beady red eyes. They move very fast and also have several unique abilities. Immunity to poison, being poisonous to enemies who ingest them, and being able to see objects buried beneath the earth. These new Pikmin also have magenta-colored buds and flowers, and they do not have onions. Purple and White Pikmin can only be obtained through the use of Violet and Ivory Candy Pop buds respectively, and these can only be found inside caves. Yellow Pikmin also receive a change in that they gain immunity to a new hazard, electricity. This improves on the necessity of having yellow Pikmin, as electricity is one of the most dangerous hazards you'll come across. The second biggest change is the addition of a second captain to your team. Louis takes that mantle, and together you work on repaying the debt. Louis, a relatively new employee of Hocotate Fright, is an odd fellow to say the least. While on his first delivery, he reported that his cargo was stolen by a ravenous space bunny, causing the entire debt in the first place. The addition of a second captain makes for some great changes to the gameplay from the first. Whereas in Pikmin, you were leading the Pikmin constantly with Olimar, Pikmin 2 lets you separate and then switch between Olimar and Louis. This is a great advantage because you can now work on 2 parts of an area almost simultaneously, allowing you to tackle different objectives together instead of one at a time. The only drawback is that while you're controlling one captain, the other will just stand until being controlled again. So this makes it good for bringing a small army to work on something like a gate, and then switching to your other captain and working on recovering treasure. But you're not only benefited from separating your captains, keeping them together will also allow you to pluck Pikmin faster, as well as deal out more damage with captains. The areas in Pikmin 2 are designed with the 2 captains in mind, providing obstacles that can be split between the 2 captains, and a few that need both captains to overcome. You have 4 different areas to choose from. The Valley of Repose, a section of crosswalk in a winter environment, the Awakening Wood, a forested area in the prime of spring, the Perplexing Pool, a wet marsh in the summer sun, and the Wistful Wild, a forest in the middle of fall. The game immediately demonstrates this change of 2 captains as soon as you crash land in the Valley of Repose, separating Olimar and Louis and having to reunite them as your first task, teaching you that you can and it can be beneficial to separate. This continues into the Awakening Wood and Perplexing Pool, with scale and weight puzzles introduced to make you work with both captains to explore an area. Now, if you've played the first game and are playing the second, you may think the areas look familiar. That's because they are. The Awakening Wood is the Forest of Hope, the Perplexing Pool is a heavily changed Distant Spring, and the Wistful Wild is a combination of the Final Trial and the Impact Site. All the landing sites are changed, and many of the obstacles differ from the first. It's a pretty clever way to reuse all the areas of the first game without feeling exactly the same.
Wait, aren't you forgetting an area?
No, I'm not missing an area.
Pikmin 2's areas do suffer somewhat in their design. The areas seem to be a bit scaled down, and with the changes they make to them, they feel somewhat cramped and have a much more linear nature to their counterparts in the first game. The Perplexing Pool is a great example. When you land, you're immediately surrounded by a wall of concrete with one way out, with the incentive to discover yellow Pikmin in a short cutscene. Contrast this to the Distant Spring, where you most likely land with all 3 Pikmin discovered, and have a large open area for you to explore upon starting the day. Overlaying the distance sprayed on the Perplexing Pool, you'll see that much of the open area is blocked by the landing site of the Perplexing Pool. This push towards finding the yellow Pikmin when you land really restricts the sense that you're exploring the area on your own accord. If the gameplay was focused entirely on the overworld areas, I would probably have a bigger gripe with this. But the bulk of Pikmin 2's gameplay takes place in something else: caves. In addition to the overworld, Pikmin 2 introduces the cave system. These serve as the bulk of where you'll be spending your time. Each one has a general theme and a varying amount of sublevels and hazards that you gradually progress through, fighting enemies and collecting treasures. There are 14 caves spread throughout the game, with all but one featuring a boss. The difficulty of these caves vary, with the first one you encounter serving as a tutorial of how to navigate through the cave and then becoming harder later on. At the end of the majority of them, you'll also find a special treasure from the boss that when collected rewards you with an addition to your explorer's kit. We'll come back to this. The caves make up for the somewhat constrictive feel of the overworld with a relatively simple feature. Each sublevel layout is randomly generated every time you enter it. Okay, not every sublevel. Save for boss arenas and some special sublevels, the layout of the cave will be different each time you land in it. And it's not just the layout of the cave itself, but the placement of enemies and treasures are randomized as well. Each sublevel in a cave has a specific set of enemies, treasures, hazards, and cave tile pieces to be used to construct it. So even though it will be different almost every time, it will still have the same aesthetic and feel. This works very well for the game's replayability, as you're tackling the hazards of the caves in a slightly different way each time. Speaking of hazards, I want to go into a tangent of the additions and changes to the hazards and obstacles between the two games. Bramble gates, stick bridges, water, fire geysers, and bomb rocks are all back, with stone gates, climbing sticks, and pushable boxes not returning. Electricity and poison are introduced instead, with the new weighted bag seemingly replacing the pushable boxes. Boulders are also introduced as a hazard, but are only found inside caves. Bomb rocks are changed so that yellow Pikmin cannot carry them anymore, and only play as a dangerous hazard to your army, while geysers return, but only as a means of securely leaving a cave. Just like in the first game, when a Pikmin is in distress from being on fire or drowning, you can save them by whistling them back into your army. You just tell them, stop it. Stop dying. All the elemental hazards, save for water in most cases, can also be destroyed. Fire geysers, gas pipes, and electric wires can be disposed of by having Pikmin attack the source, while certain pools of water can be drained by destroying a clog. Gates are also given some elemental aspects to them. Gates being placed in water is nothing new. These water gates have existed in the first game, but Pikmin 2 also adds gas pipes into some bramble gates, making poison gates. Both of these gates can be destroyed by their non-respective Pikmin though, if you attack it from outside the hazard, or exploit getting through the hazard, like killing the gas pipes through the gate by using purple Pikmin. Electric gates are the only gates that are truly different. They can only be touched by yellow Pikmin, and electricity is the only elemental hazard that immediately kills the Pikmin. There is no way to rescue them if they touch it. These hazards are the second most common obstacle you'll find behind enemies. Before you can safely collect treasure or traverse through an area, you have to take out the hazards with the correct type of Pikmin, making you stop and think a tiny bit before proceeding. Which makes it a shame though, as the fire geysers can easily be taken out by any kind of Pikmin with little risk, and there is no fire gate, heavily negating the necessity for red Pikmin in your army.
Well, that is a shame. Where were we? Something about caves?
Ah, yes.
So with caves, you enter the cave, making your way through each sublevel one by one, collecting treasure, and then exit via a geyser at the end with all your Pikmin and treasure. You can also leave the cave earlier through the pause menu, but doing so will cause you to leave all the treasure you've collected behind, and you will have to go back to the cave to recollect it.
You know, I know a thing or two about caves myself.
Of course you do. I personally love the shower room best. It has the perfect mix of hazards, enemies, and a good length to it, though it does have a lackluster boss. Maybe I'll do a review of all the caves in Pikmin 2.
Shouldn't you finish this review up first?
Probably. Rambling on to the next topic, treasures are the collectible items found in Pikmin 2. Whereas Pikmin had you collecting your lost ship parts to repair the SS Dolphin, Pikmin 2 has treasures used to help you repay the debt. Each one has a value that will decrement that amount of Pokos off the total debt. With a total of 201 treasures in the game, there is more than 6 times the amount of items to collect as opposed to the first. The first half of the game is you just collecting enough treasure equal to the value of the debt, and soon after, you are back to collect the rest of the treasure. Differing from the first game, where after collecting a certain amount of ship parts would grant you access to a new area, collecting treasure by itself is only used to pay off the debt. Accessing new areas in Pikmin 2 is done through a different method, by collecting specific treasures that grant you access, specifically the Spherical Atlas and Geographic Projection. When collected, these treasures are added to your Exploration Kit, which is a collection of treasures that the ship is able to use to upgrade your abilities. With this, you improve upon abilities you have, such as being able to run faster, whistle with a bigger radius, and deal out more damage. And you'll gain new abilities, such as immunity to elements, plucking with your whistle, as well as even detecting treasure. You know how I mentioned that white Pikmin can detect treasure buried underground? This is how you detect it too. The Exploration Kit also includes the Ultra Spicy and Ultra Bitter Sprays, which are 2 power-ups you obtain after discovering 10 Ultra Spicy Berries and 10 Ultra Bitter Berries. Using the Ultra Spicy Spray will give your Pikmin a temporary boost in speed and attack power, which is great for quickly taking down obstacles and attacking bosses. Ultra Bitter Spray, when used, temporarily petrifies an enemy, causing them to be unable to move, attack, or defend themselves. If the enemy is not killed in this time, they revert back to how they were just before they were petrified. After discovering these sprays, you can obtain another dose by collecting 10 more of the respective berry, or by coming across a drop of the spray in a nectar egg. If you kill a petrified enemy, it will release a drop of nectar, or in semi-rare cases, a dose of the spray. Using the sprays and Exploration Kit upgrades can make for some interesting choices when replaying the game. If you remember where each Explorer's Kit treasure is, you can, to an extent, choose which one of the upgrades you wish to get first, and where to use certain sprays to help you out. I say to an extent because some of the upgrades are pretty much going to be found in the same order due to the natural progression of the game. Cutting back to the treasures, a great thing about Pikmin 2 is the design of the treasures that you find. As opposed to alien ship parts, the treasures are based on real-world items. Real-world brands like Duracell, Dr. Pepper, and Carmax appear throughout, with their products being labeled as treasure. Some treasures even change between the American, European, and Japanese versions of the game to better represent products of that respective region. The tie-in to real-world brands really gives that feeling like it's not some far-off fictitious story. And it's hilarious to see a high value put on things that are essentially junk, as well as the reasoning behind thinking some of it is treasure in Picklepedia.
Picklepedia? What's Picklepedia?
And not to mention, since they're real objects, you can collect them yourself.
You collect junk?
It is not junk! It's treasure.
Once you collect enough junk, or treasure, to repay the debt, you return back to Hocotate, completely forgetting Louie, never to be seen again.
The end.
Except you go back and...
Oh, right! You end up going back. I have to talk about that. I have nothing written.
Well, if this isn't the lamest way to split a review in half.
Okay, no worries. I'll just start writing it now. Don't you guys go anywhere.
Listen. Thanks for bearing through that. I'll try to notify you when the next part is released, but you know how this guy is. See you later!